Any more questions? Come on, there's got to be questions. Yes?
Were you involved with the American Prayer album?
Well, thank you for asking that. Yes, I was one of the co-producers of American Prayer. An experience that was incredible experience because we were dealing with Jim's spoken word every day, listening to it, and feeling Jim's presence while we were working on it. And a whole bunch of coincidental experiences kept occurring day by day, and we kept feeling that Jim was in the room with us while we were making it. And the other three doors were involved in the making of that album. Corky Corson, who was Pamela's father, was involved in making that album, and John Haney, who originally recorded Jim's spoken words twice, actually, on two different occasions. So, and a couple of people who are here today actually were instrumental in introducing that album to the American public. So, thanks, Rich. Thanks, Bill.
Could you give us like one little snapshot story of what it was like to be with Jim on a sidewalk in the 60s at the height of their fame?
A couple of things about Jim walking. You know, he didn't have a car because he was an alcoholic, and so people necessarily took the car keys away from him. So mostly he didn't have a car, and he walked. He'd walk around the streets, and people would see him on the street, and if I was walking with him, we were going to a meeting somewhere, he had an appointment, he'd stop and talk to the people on the street who approached him for a half hour. He didn't, I mean, this was now. Jim was living in the now all the time. So that experience of him being in the now sort of dissolved what was going to happen in the future. So we'd arrive at the meetings an hour late or half hour late, but he made those people happy. He would sign whatever they had and talk to them about their questions. Yeah, he was a very down-to-earth human being.
In terms of his sense of humor, can you give us an idea of his humor?
Fudd Ford, who was his high school friend or junior high school friend, said to me that he was the funniest guy that he ever met. And virtually everyone in the book comments on Jim's sense of humor. He was a bad joke teller. Funny, a guy who was a writer and a performer really didn't tell jokes very well, but as I remembered, he just didn't tell jokes very well. But he loved a good joke, and he loved laughing, and you know, he had a very quick mind, so his observations about things were accurate and funny, a little cynical maybe, made us laugh. Dour, hardly ever. Hardly ever. Depressed. I think one day he walked into the door's office and said to Leon and to Kathy, he said, "I'm feeling depressed today." It was like he was trying to figure out what being depressed was like, I think. I never saw him that way, even during the trial. In Miami, I was there for about a week. I didn't see him dour and depressed. I saw a spirit that continued to enliven him. He was quiet, a little bit shy, and maybe people took that for being depressed, but he wasn't. And sometimes getting into a role, actors and performers like to be quiet before the performance starts and after. So we see pictures of Jim backstage, and he's sort of interior, inside of himself. But he wasn't really that way in everyday life.
What did you like about Jim the best, and conversely, what did you like about him the least?
The best, I think, was his generosity. Generosity of spirit, generosity of, in all ways. He was just a generous friend. You know, he'd listen to you. He would listen, he would comment. His sense of generosity to journalists was amazing. No matter how inane the questions were, how grossly stupid they were, he would answer them and try to direct the conversation into something a little bit more intelligent, maybe, or at least more interesting. So I think generosity was the thing that I would say, the quality that he had that I enjoyed the most. As far as what I didn't like about him, I have nothing to say. Anyway, somebody came along with those spoon rings. In fact, there's a picture of the spoon, one of the spoon rings that he gave Kathy. And he bought the whole box of spoon rings from this, young little craftsman who was running around trying to sell one at a time. Well, he bought the whole box from the guy, gave him the money, and then the guy was so happy. And then Jim said to Kathy, "Pick out a ring." Kathy picked out one. She thought that was wonderful. Then he took the box and he gave it back to the guy so he could sell the rings again.